Good evening. There we go. Now I know the mic's on. Anyway, hello and welcome to this Friday evening Magical Experiments broadcast. Um, Recently, my good friend S. Connolly, who writes all about demonolatry and other amazing topics of magic, had shared, uh, some videos of her own on what the purpose of magic is, and I guess she'd had a interaction, I guess, with one person who responded to it, and his response was that the purpose of magic is to get results. And so I read her response to that, and I ended up sharing my own thoughts about ritual magic, because she pointed out how high magic is not necessarily done for results, and I thought, there's some truth to that. So I thought tonight that what I would do is share some of my own thoughts on what the purpose of magic is, and why do we practice magic anyway? And I think really what it comes right down to is that it really comes right down to why you are practicing magic in the first place. Like what is it that you want to get from it? So in that sense, the purpose of magic is really based around the results that you're looking for. Now, a person might say, "Aha!" Then it's true that magic is just about results. But I want to stress that when we talk about results, we're not always just talking about short-term practical results. My book, The Process of Magic, I discuss quite a bit, why it's important to define your results. And I think it is important to define your results if you want to define your magical approach, because if you don't know what you want, then you don't know what you're enchanting for, and you certainly don't know why you're doing any of the other things that you're doing. So it is important to have some kind of result in mind. But it's equally important that you understand that it doesn't always have to be a practical result. Sure, practical results are nice, but if you look at most results-based magic, most of it is focused around reacting to situations. Problem occurs in your life. Oh no, everything's going wrong. I'll do some magic. You do some magic and you get a result. Or you have some situation come up and you need something to happen, and you do some magic to get that thing to happen. That's typically where results-based magic comes into play. And there's nothing wrong with results-based magic, but if you notice, it is magic that really is based around getting a result in order to solve a problem or create a desirable situation. It's a reaction to things that are happening. My own approach to magic is magic by design. And what I mean by that really is magic that is performed in order to create a specific lifestyle, in order to shape my life in the way that really brings favorable outcomes without me having to react to things. Because what I'm doing is essentially long-term magic that's looking down the line. Where do I want to be, and how am I going to get there, and what do I need to do, both mundanely and magically, to get there? I think it would be fair to say that it's kind of a combination of ritual magic and results-based magic. I mean, I am shooting for specific results, but a lot of the work that I'm doing would be considered high magic, whatever that is. Or it might be considered really kind of magic that is done for not done for a specific in your face, I'm going to materialize this result. It's done in order to create alignment in your life with the principles that matter to you. For example, my elemental balancing ritual is a good example of this kind of work. I mean, this is a year-long, at least, if not more, magical working that is done daily for the purposes of aligning yourself with specific elemental energies in order to allow those elemental energies into your life and learn the lessons you need to learn. And by elemental energies, I don't mean just the classic five, such as water, but rather but also things such as the element of love, or the element of emptiness, the element of stillness. Right now, the element of creativity, in my case, is a good example of that. So, when we really look at why we're doing magic and what we're doing magic for, it's worthwhile to really explore in depth what is it that I really want to accomplish with this? Am I looking just for short-term results? Problem comes up, whip out magic, and there it goes. Or am I looking for long-term change? My own perspective on magical work in general is much more inclined toward long term. It wasn't always that way. I would say up until the really up until the early 2000s, my magical work was very much reaction based. So for the first 10 years of my magical practice, basically, it was all about getting results when things came up. I might do some spiritual devotion work, but for the most part, it was problem comes up in my life, whip out magic, solve the problem. But in 2003, 2004, I had a very important realization. I realized that the direction my life was going in, I was going to end up in a situation where I was going to be in trouble, because I was just lurching from reaction to reaction in life, and not really solving my problems so much as finding a short-term fix. And I realized that all the problems had one thing in common, and that was me. Right? And that's true for anyone. I mean, if you look at your problems in your life, whatever they are, there is one thing that all those problems have, and it's you. And I'm not saying that you're necessarily completely responsible for those problems or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's always worthwhile to look at your role in a given situation and ask yourself, well, why does this situation keep happening to me? What am I doing? What am I attracting? What am I subconsciously influencing? Because here's the thing about magic. If you really look at how magic works as a principle, or as a fundamental moving principle of the universe, what you discover is that we're in tune with magic all the time, whether or not we realize it or not. But in a very real sense, a lot of what's happening is that we're being given the circumstances that we need to have. Well, if you think about that, if you're being given circumstances that are problematic for you, you might say, well, why do I need those circumstances? My answer to that is, well, what do you need to learn? Right? What is it that you need to learn in your life that is causing you to have those situations continue to come up? And yeah, you can go and you can do some magical work to, short-term fix stuff, to change the momentum of the universe in your favor for a little bit. But if you really think about it, it's like we're on a river, right? You're on this river going along, and you can paddle against it for a little bit and get somewhere, but eventually the river is going to sweep you back down to where you were before. If you can learn to ride the currents and work with them and come into harmony with them, you'll find that your magical work and your life changes significantly. When I started to make this switch over from doing reactive magic to solve problems to magic by life design, I started to notice that my need to do reactive magic decreased. And I'm not going to tell you it was an overnight thing. I mean, this was something where, I'd probably done a couple years of elemental balancing work, and I started to really see a shift. Started to see a shift in things. But I would say that, in a very real sense, it took me a number of years to continue to work out some of that stuff and to kind of work through my own stuff. I mean, I would honestly say that it was probably around 2010, a good 7 years into the whole process, that things began to overall become much smoother. And not that I haven't had my bumps since then. I mean, I have, but even managing, a situation like the year 2017 where things just went catastrophically wrong, one time I would have been a lot more bent out of shape. But doing the work that I did allowed me to adjust to the situation, course correct, and find my way to a much better place, and where things are actually flowing a lot more smoothly than they were even before. So really why I share this is because when we look at magic, we also need to realize, if you're doing magic for lifestyle design, you necessarily do need to realize this is ongoing work. It's not something where it's going to be an overnight success and there you go. It's ongoing work where you're gradually steering and directing your life in the direction that you want to go in. Nothing wrong with that. You just need to realize that that's the case, and that a significant part of what makes magic work really does come right down to getting clear on what matters to you and on what you want to change in your life overall, and starting to proactively make those changes both on a mundane and magical level. I mentioned the mundane level because I think a lot of times people want to use magic to solve their problems without any thought to the mundane actions that necessarily need to come with that. I was interacting with a fan. We were exchanging a few emails, and he was sharing with me, some of the work that he's doing right now in regards to some job work. And one of the suggestions I mentioned to him was that, he should really find a way to incorporate his mundane activities into that magical work. Why? And you might say, well, why do that? I mean, the answer is twofold. One, path of least resistance. Make your life easier than it has to be. Go on that path of least resistance for your magical work, because then you get your results faster. But two, when we incorporate all of our life into our spiritual practice, that's when we begin to live our lives by design instead of by reaction. And that's when our spiritual practice becomes a spiritual practice by design instead of a spiritual practice where we're just trying to get out of the latest situation. And I think really that's what the purpose of magic is, that the purpose of practicing magic is really lifestyle design, which I don't know that anyone else is really talking about so much per se, but there it is, or at least not in those terms, but there it is. That's the way that I think of things. It's the way that I approach magic, is that it's a lifestyle design approach. It's an approach that's really based on how can I tweak my life and how can I find ways to make it easier for me to live my life and to focus on my true purpose. The results and the results, and there are results to that, is a much less traumatic life, a much easier to live life. I think that, if your life isn't easy to live, it's worth examining why that is, and then making the changes you need to make in order to make your life easier to live. But I'm going to tell you, it does take some work. It's kind of ironic. In going for an easier life, or rather a life by design, you still have to do some work. It's not like it just happens for you. You actually have to do some work. But the benefit of doing that work, your life gets easier. And again, I'm not going to say you're never going to have your bumps and bruises and all that other stuff. I mean, I certainly have. But it's interesting, because when I look back at 2017 right now, I see it now as a course correction. At the time, I didn't. I just saw it as, oh man, everything's falling apart, and no matter what I do, it's not working. And now I'm having to change my life in so many ways that I don't want to. Well, it turned out that's what I really needed. Was it hard to do? Sure. But it was a course correction that may help me really focus on what I need to be doing instead of getting distracted and going in directions that weren't productive for me like I had been before. That course correction really helped me get on task and on track with what I need to be doing in my life. So, realizing that was a very important thing. And what helped is that, at the time when stuff seemed to go wrong, what did I do? I started doing more magical work. Some people always say, well, why would you be doing more magical work when your life's falling apart around you? Because I knew that by committing to the magical work and committing to, this idea, this concept of doing magic doing magic for the purpose of lifestyle design, that what it would allow me to do is ride that situation and turn it into my advantage and turn it in such a way that I could end up moving forward into the directions that I needed to go in. Was it scary? Definitely. But focusing on magic for that purpose of lifestyle design allowed me to weather that rough spot in my life and come out ahead. And utilizing magic in terms of lifestyle design in general has allowed me to live a very happy life overall. When I think about it, I mean, I've been able to do a lot of things that otherwise I might not have been able to do if I'd just been reacting to situations, waiting for things to happen, and then just whipping out magic to solve a problem. So when I think about the purpose of magic, and I think this is true whether you're doing practical magic or you're doing ritual magic or high magic, whatever you want to call it, or anything along those lines, I think that it's worthwhile to ask yourself, what is the desired result? What is my purpose for doing this? Where do I want to go? What is it I want to accomplish? And don't just focus on that short-term result. Think of it in the long term. Play the long game out. Because when you play the long game, you will fundamentally understand how magic works in your life. And you'll also fundamentally understand that your life can be shaped in accordance with your will. More importantly, you'll start to have the experiences that you need to have to help you become a better person, whatever that means to you, and to help you get the experiences that you need to have. So I look at magic really as lifestyle design, and that's what the purpose of magic is. And all the various magical activities and work that you do, that's part of that lifestyle design. That's part of how you shape and direct your life and create what it is that you're looking for. Again, no guarantees that this is just going to suddenly make your life easy. I mean, there's some real work involved. But I think when we take this approach to magical work, we find that it significantly makes our life easier because we're willing to do the work. You know, it was when I was willing to do the work, it was when I was willing to commit to doing what I needed to do to shape my life, that things began to change in a way that was positive and productive. All right, so that's it for this evening. Just wanted to share all that with you, and hopefully you all have a wonderful weekend, and see you sometime soon.